It was like 99% blessing and 1% curse. The blessing was that a best friend, somebody that you relate to, still super close to. The 1% curse was that, at least for me, I never felt compelled to go and make a whole bunch of friends outside of that.
So I was his only friend.
It's not quite that bad, but almost.
Hello and welcome to Nosotros, the podcast about Mexican-American politics, history, cultura, y más, brought to you in part by the Gomez Law Firm. I'm your host, Elaine Ayala, Metro columnist for the San Antonio Express News. My guests today are Joaquin and Julian Castro, the city's twin brothers who've become national political, civil rights, and social justice figures. Julian Castro, the former mayor of San Antonio and former housing secretary in the Obama presidency, is chief executive officer of the Latino Community Foundation, the nation's largest Latino-serving foundation. He's also an MSNBC political analyst and guest anchor. U.S. Congressman Joaquin Castro represents the 20th District of Texas in the U.S. House of Representatives. They're here to talk about a lot of events in their lives, in the life of the nation, as they get ready to celebrate their 50th birthdays in a few days. Thanks for joining me on Nosotros.
Good to be
Welcome.
with you. Great to be here. Thanks for having us, Elaine.
Good to be in the same room with him.
I know,
barely see
this
him
is
anymore.
a rare treat.
Yeah.
We don't get to see each other in person that often, although we talk on the phone like 2 or 3 times a day.
Of course. I mean, you are, okay, this is the only thing I know about twins. After my brother died in 1999, I read a lot about grief and siblings. And it's more traumatic than we think. More traumatic than losing your parents, who you expect to lose in your lifetime, even than a spouse who they're contemporaries. Siblings are a huge loss because they know you from the very beginning, but no more so than for twins and multiples.
Yeah.
Because you started in utero.
Yeah, I remember I was at the San Antonio Public Library, I don't know, sometime in the 90s, maybe mid-90s. And I came across this article that was in something to the title of The Lone Twin Club. And I never got to read the article, but it was about the passing.
About surviving.
Yeah, the
twins.
passing of a twin.
Oh, that's so horrible.
Yeah, so no, I hear you.
Yeah, but you're right that, for us, we turn 50 on Monday, and you're right that twins, you walk through life together the whole way through. And you have a ready-made best friend. You have somebody that has had like 90-something% of the same experiences. And because of that, often sees the world, of course, very similarly. That's not always the case, but a lot of times we do. And I used to say, and still do sometimes, that it was like 99% blessing and 1% curse. The blessing was that a best friend, somebody that you relate to, still super close to. The 1% curse was that, at least for me, I never felt compelled to go and make a whole bunch of friends outside of that.
So I was his only friend.
It's not quite that bad, but almost. No, in high school at Jeff, there were days that I would talk to like 3 people, 2 people. One of them was him. So,
Then 5 years ago, I grew this beard, and so now I mean, it's people still think that I'm him sometimes, which amazes me because they've seen me before and they still think I'm him.
It amazes me too because there's so many multiples in my family that you become a student. And a long time ago when you guys were in Stanford, I think, it was just early on when I realized, Rosie Castro's boys. And then I would look at you and go, oh yeah, they're completely different. And everybody's like, how do you tell them apart?
Well, I think the tough part is remembering which one is which.
Yeah, even if people can distinguish, say, oh, okay, yeah, but which one?
You're the one with the hair that goes this way or whatever it is. Right?
Okay, one of the things I always do with all my guests is play a little game of this or that. So here we go.
Right.
Take turns, but you both have to answer.
Okay.
Eliminate the Electoral College or grow the Supreme Court?
I would say eliminate the Electoral College, because then you wouldn't have had the George W. Bush presidency and the debacle of Iraq, and you wouldn't have had Donald Trump either. And the president appoints the Supreme Court justice. We literally would have a completely different
That's
Supreme
why
Court.
you guys got to Stanford and Harvard. You're so smart.
So you kind of,
Yeah, you already know that the results have won.
Yeah, I would say the same thing. I mean, I would say eliminate the Electoral College, because there's only so many times, I think, where one candidate can win the popular vote and another one wins the Electoral College. Mm-hmm. I think if it happens too often, as we've seen, it starts to undermine Americans' confidence that the presidential election produces the rightful winner. And we've seen it happen a few times now in recent history. And so if I had to choose one of those, that's what I'd choose.
Biden's aging status or Trump's?
Oh, Trump is a joke. Trump, you see it every day. He goes on these rants. The debate from the other day, same thing. He's just discombobulated thoughts. And it's very surprising to me that he has not gotten nearly as much flack for his shortcomings. There was so much attention that was paid to Biden. Trump is only 3 years younger and so much more erratic out there.
Well, and I agree, but I think he's also been like that for a long time. I think for him, it's probably gotten worse with age, but he's been like that. He was never, from the beginning when he came down that escalator and said all those crazy things.
He was never quite right.
He was never like a substantive, serious president or candidate, and he's just worse now.
Shorten the presidential campaign season or limit spending on presidential campaigns?
I would limit spending if I was going to choose those two.
Yeah. I'd say the same thing. You have a lot of fans that probably want you to shorten. They're tired of it by the end.
They're tired. If you live in one of those swing states, all those people are sick of the commercials.
Yeah, but I would say the same thing because, I support greater public financing for presidential elections and elections at every level, including the local level. And there's some really interesting efforts to do that. But combined with spending limits too. I think that you need to get as much big money out of politics as possible. That may not be entirely possible, but it is a lot more possible than we've done.
We need to get big money out of everything, out of the Supreme Court especially.
Very true.
Okay. The Alamo or the missions?
Well, the Alamo was one of the missions, right?
But, it's not, even the distance says something.
Yeah, I would say the missions. And because when I think and the Alamo is one of the missions, as Joaquin said, but when I think of the missions also, I think of the voices that we've heard from more recently in the Native American community, for instance, to kind of reclaim the narrative and tell the full picture of what happened there in the missions and how meaningful those sites are, not only to the legend of the Alamo or the legend of different missions, but to the people, to the communities. Mm-hmm. And I feel like, sometimes with the controversy that you get around the Alamo, that the full story of the missions and their significance doesn't get told.
That's right.
I don't know. I think you could, I think there's a challenge there. I think you can tell all those stories within the story of the Alamo and of course the other missions. But I think we shouldn't shy away from that. There is a lot of work left to do to tell the larger story. But I think that effort has to be focused somewhere. And I do think that you can focus it on the Alamo.
Si se puede or Kamala Harris for the people?
Oh, definitely.
Well, we need to win this election now, so Kamala Harris for the people.
I agree, yeah.
It's the more immediate
the pressing thing, yeah. No, it's been wonderful to see the enthusiasm, optimism of this fall. Let's hope that it lasts. This short sprint of a few weeks that's left until the election. But
Henry C., or Henry B?
That's an impossible.
I like these impossible questions.
Yeah, both legends, obviously. Look, Henry Cisneros is a great friend of ours, but I'm in the 20th congressional district, so I have to say Henry B.
Oh,
so
yeah,
Henry
because
Cisneros
that was his legendary
that's
district.
Right. Yeah,
Well,
that's right.
He was in the 20th Congress. I served as mayor, and Henry was a groundbreaking mayor.
So we'll split on
there
that.
you go. So half
followed
and
in his
half. We've
footsteps.
split
That's
the
But
difference.
we were very inspired by both of them and have read a lot about both.
And even when I go today, I'll start a speech in front of a crowd here in town, and sometimes I'll start by saying, I represent a big part of the West Side and South Side, and this is the main San Antonio district because it's completely within Bexar County. And it was once represented by Henry B. Gonzalez, and then you get all the heads nodding, and you have a lot of the crowd that still remembers his service.
Yeah. Okay, this is one that I ask everybody. Corn or flour?
Flour.
Flour, yeah. We were just eating, and we had flour tortillas.
Oh, God.
But like when you're in California, you can't they don't serve a lot of.
Well, it's like when you're in Mexico, you really don't get harina or flour.
Yes,
You can ask for, but it's corn.
It's corn.
But here, we love,
Yeah.
I have to admit, I don't eat nearly as many tortillas as I used to.
Me too.
Well, he lost 25 pounds or something, and during the pandemic.
Not that much, but
I don't know,
started eating
15
healthier.
pounds.
But when I eat tortillas, my favorite are bean and cheese tacos.
Absolutely.
And it
and
has
they
to be
go.
You can't get that really in California. Or
To
other
me,
places
to eat them
either.
on corn wouldn't be the same.
Oh, no. That it's also really messy. Okay, this is not a this or that, but another quick one. 50 is the new...
50 is a new 50. You think of it like growing up, I was thinking of 50 is old, right? Like that number. And now, with our birthday here.
Like 50 is the new 30, right? Like I think it's true that people, when you grow up and you think, oh yeah, that's so old, and people would feel old, but you really don't feel,
No.
quote unquote old or like you can't.
Well,
do
they
stuff.
on the internet, you see these pictures of television stars like an Archie Bunker, some of those old shows. And then they show the actor's age at the time.
How old they
And
were.
you're shocking.
because you thought they were like 80
Well,
years
it's
old,
like all
and
of
they were
those
like
old-
46.
When you go to your old high school or when we were going, you would see like the classes from 3 decades ago, and you're like, what? They look so much older than the kids there now.
Mm-hmm.
Or they look more grown up.
Yeah,
right?
they look
adult.
grown
Yeah.
up, and so
I think
we're hoping
50
that 50 is the new 30.
I think it is. I'm with you. Okay, first of all, happy birthday.
Thank you.
You're about to celebrate this monumental landmark, so I'll begin just simply and ask how you both are doing.
I'm doing great. Enjoying, my family and enjoying my new role at the Latino Community Foundation. Feeling good. So yeah, it's a good time right now. I feel like I'm ready to turn 50 and been encouraged because I hear people say that your 50s are a good decade in a surprising way. So I'm looking forward to that.
Well, I'm in Congress, so he's doing better than me, and you're doing better than me. But all things considered, I'm doing okay. A few years ago, as you know, I got diagnosed with neuroendocrine cancer, and the remaining tumors that I have are stable. So that's been good. I just need them to stay stable for 40 more years or something.
Stable means they're not growing.
Yeah, they're not growing. They haven't grown for about 2 years. So generally pretty good. Hopeful about this election. We're working really hard. Obviously, as Democrats, we want Kamala Harris to win the presidency. But very proud of having represented San Antonio now this is my 22nd year in public service. 10 in the state legislature and now 12 in Congress.
What is the best thing about being a twin? We'll start with you. And the worst thing?
I think the best thing is you always have somebody that you're very close to that you can talk to, a best friend. The worst thing is probably, even though it's not terrible, but I think you lose some of your individual identity, especially when you're younger, because people tend to group you together. They see you as a unit rather than as an individual. And I think as we've gotten older and, even though we've both been in public service, kind of two different paths within public service, and had our own families and all of that, I think more of that individuality is there now.
Yeah, I would agree on the best thing. Like, you have a ready-made best friend, and someone that we still talk all the time. The worst thing, I agree about the identity, but also for us, like competing when we were growing up, because, you're growing up with somebody that's in the same grade that you are, often playing the same sports that you are, like the same height that you are, right? Like, there's a tendency to be competitive. And one of the great things about getting older was being able to get over that. Because when we were young, when we were in middle school, high school, I think in sports and school, that's how we were. And it wasn't so overwhelming that it made our relationship bad, but it was always an undercurrent, I think, there.
Well, I mean, I think it generally can go in a good direction. You can be competitive to achieve things, do well in school, do well in sports, or probably go in a bad direction to do bad things.
Yeah. I think we helped each other propel ourselves to more success, especially academically. But still, I mean, that doesn't always feel good to be competitive when you're growing up. And,
especially we were sharing a bedroom and all that. And, like we were always around each other. Yeah.
Yeah. That, and then over the years, I'm sure that I've lost, some shirts or ties, pants, a pair of pants. It was nice jeans. Or something.
Yeah, ended up in his closet.
Well, for years, I know. I mean, I had at one point I was thinner than he was. Then for years, well, he's still thinner than I am now. But after I had my cancer surgery, I lost, 15 pounds or something. And I was still 5 pounds heavier than him. Literally, they took out parts of me. And I was still 5 pounds heavier than him.
I'm remembering a story, correct me, about Rosie Castro, the day you were born. Rosie, the longtime political activist, general badass, being at a 16 de septiembre event when she realized, I'm about to give birth. Is that correct? Is that?
I think that, we were born on the 16, so we were born at like 2:40 and 2:41 in the morning. Of course, we had
probably the day before.
Yeah, so okay. But I think that they had been at the market square.
They were at the menudo
earlier. Yeah, my grandmother had won a menudo cook-off.
Oh, really? That's fabulous.
We were born
I have the framed article in my house where.
So it's possible she probably was out at the SEC's event, but she probably had gone home by then, by 2:40.
So that's pretty good timing for a set of twins that became, major political, cultural figures everywhere. But how does that auspicious beginning, that cultural and historical timing sort of, mean to you, especially as you're getting ready to have another big public birthday party?
I think it's very auspicious and I think fitting for my mom and her activism as a Chicana activist who tried to ensure that the Mexican-American community could have equal standing in our country, and starting with here in San Antonio. And a pride that she had and we have in our culture. So yeah, it's a nice birthday to have. She jokes that we were her grito. That's what she said.
That's beautiful. Okay, so a lot of us kind of take a look at our lives at big milestone birthdays and calculate, this is all I accomplished. This is all I haven't yet accomplished. What do you see as your, what's left? What are the big bucket list items? Maybe what are some regrets?
I was going to start on that next week.
Start writing them down?
Yeah, no, it's, like when I think about, for example, just the politics part, the things that I'm proudest of. Yeah, I spent a lot of years, the first 16 years of my time in politics in the deep minority party. And so I often had to do things to go around like the traditional system. And so, for example, during my time in the state legislature, myself and my office, the people that worked with me, we created what ultimately became the city's largest book drive and literacy campaign. We handed it off to an organization, and they built it up as Project SA Reads. So that's something that I'm really proud of, is that work. And then, different pieces of legislation, helping veterans, spreading early childhood education all over the world through legislation. So very proud of that. And, in terms of the future, I mean, I think you kind of, at least for me, I got a sense like, okay, how long do I want to be in politics, right? Because now you kind of see the horizon over of your working life, right? Let's just say it's 25 years. I don't know. I'm just picking a number. But how much of it do I want to dedicate to public service when I've done it for 22 years? Or do I want to do something else? And there's no resolution in my mind yet. So I'm not leaving. I'm not announcing anything. Or I'm just saying, you kind of start to think about those things.
Do you want to run for another office? Do you want to just, at some point, just leave politics maybe?
Yeah, either one of those things is possible. I mean, I'll leave politics at some point, right? Like everybody will leave politics at some point in their own careers. But yeah, I could see myself running for another office if it makes sense for me and if it's something that I really want to do. I have learned over the years not to just jump at every opportunity or everything just because it's there. Which early on, that kind of takes a little bit of, I think early on you have so much ambition and you're almost like a horse out of the race gates. Mm-hmm. And then I think over time you kind of learn to pick the things that you really want to work on and spend time on. And so either one of those things.
I have to tell you that one of the things you've done that I've most appreciated is your focus on diversity and inclusion in the news media, in the entertainment industry, in book publishing. I don't know how you measure success there, but I measure it in the fact that it's what people talk about when you're talking about it.
Yeah. Yeah, no, I mean, after 18 years of public service, 17 years, whatever it was, I decided, there's an issue that I have not had a chance to really work on or get to because there was always some other issue that seemed more urgent or immediate, whether it was healthcare, immigration, education, job, whatever it was, obviously very crucial, important issues. But these cultural issues of representation and how a community is perceived in American society, that's a bedrock issue that we don't think about enough as legislators. And so, with the Latino community, we grew up in a household that was fighting for Mexican American rights. And the Latino story has been largely left out of the telling of the American story. Mm-hmm. And there's a cost to that. I mean, that a community becomes defined not by its contributions and its positives, but by its deficits and its negative stereotypes. Mm-hmm. And that's the kind of thing I think that has contributed to the tragedies in El Paso and other places where the Latino community is targeted. And so I decided about 5 years ago that I was really going to jump in, really hard into these issues. And I have, in publishing and film, television, streaming. We just started a coalition yesterday on gaming, Latinos in gaming.
Oh.
Well, the gaming industry in the United States is larger than the film industry and larger than the music industry by many estimates, by many measures. And it's a big way that the younger generation socializes with each other online. Mm-hmm. And so we're taking that on now. But these issues are fundamental to how a community sees itself and how it's perceived by other Americans.
Accomplishments, regrets.
I'm proud of the public service that I gave to the city and then my service at HUD. I'm especially proud of Pre-K for SA.
Absolutely.
That we did here.
That's what we remember you for.
So happy. To me, that's in there. That was not just my accomplishment. That was the accomplishment of a lot of people who made that happen. And then ultimately the accomplishment of the voters who had to support that to make it happen. But it makes me very happy to think that there are thousands and thousands of kids that are going to get a better education because of that program. And many of them will have more success, not only in school, but possibly in life because of it. And so, I'm proud of work like that. But then also, proud of my kids. My daughter, Karina, is 15 now and a sophomore in high school, into volleyball.
How did that happen?
Oh, I know. She was born
just flipping her hair at the Democratic National Committee. It seemed.
She was born like 2 months before I became mayor. My son, Christian, is 9 now, and he's in 4th grade. He's going to turn 10 at the end of the year. And so I think about, how quickly time flies by, and that it's true what they tell you, that like they grow up in a heartbeat. I went through a divorce a couple of years ago, and that's never fun. But fortunately, it was amicable, and we've been able to focus on raising the kids well. And so I'm looking forward, to seeing all of their success in the years to come. And for me, I don't know, if or when I'll get back into politics. I still watch it all the time, of course. I'm still an MSNBC analyst.
By the way, you do that really well.
Oh,
congratulations.
Yeah, no, I appreciate that. And I'm the CEO of the Latino Community Foundation. As you mentioned, it's the nation's largest Latina and Latino serving foundation. It's based in the Bay Area, and so I'm still based here, but commuting a good amount of the time to California. And I feel very gratified at the work that we do, because we invest a lot in organizations that are doing voter education and mobilization in a 501c3 way, and then also economic justice and opportunity work. So I'm not in public service, but I still feel like I'm making a difference with my team at LCF for people.
Yes, you're still serving the people.
Yeah, it's a different sector. Philanthropy is different for sure, and I'm still learning the ropes. But I've enjoyed it, and I don't feel compelled right now to run for office. But I won't say never. I could in the future.
Okay, political questions now. Just a few before we wrap up. What's most at stake in November's election? You go first this time.
The future of our democracy. What we saw last time in 2020 was that when Donald Trump lost, that he tried to undermine our democratic process. First, marshaling fake electors and trying to get secretaries of state to change the vote count in swing states that were close. And then on January 6th, inciting a violent coup attempt at the Capitol as members of Congress were certifying the election actively that day. They tried to stop it. So, fast forward 4 years, and what we see is a candidate that still believes ultimately only in himself. And to me, represents, as Dick Cheney of all people said the other day, the greatest threat that we've seen to our democracy in its history. Nobody else, of course, there have been a lot of people who could have been a big threat, and some that were, but nobody else that was in the position that he was in as president, and even is in now, being so close in the polls to possibly winning in November. What's at stake is, do we believe in our democracy? If we do, then I think that it's a clear choice.
And it's remarkable, I think, that it is so close, that we are just a percentage point or two in so many critical states, and it's not clear to the people.
Yeah, it amazes me still, although with everything that we've seen with Donald Trump over the last 9 years since he first announced his first run, it amazes me that he's even still in contention, that he could win in November after getting convicted on 34 counts of criminal counts, after January 6th, after how nasty and mean he's shown himself to be, and how vindictive, after all of the people that had worked for him, generals and respected lawyers and a number of other people have said, hey, this guy's dangerous, this guy shouldn't be in office. And he still has enough support to possibly win the election in November. I think that says as much about where we are as a country as it does about him.
This country is either going to continue as a democracy or we're going to go down this road of authoritarianism or fascism. And so the stakes really couldn't be higher in November. And I was in the Capitol complex on January 6, 2021. I was in my office at Rayburn and saw crowds of people outside my own window and saw the bomb unit, the DC, I imagine the DC bomb unit right below our window there, and had the chance to serve on the impeachment team.
Congratulations and thank you on that. That was
we didn't get the we didn't get him convicted in the Senate,
but the process, the presentation, I felt I was watching a movie almost. It was so beautiful. I was so proud.
Yeah. Well, I was proud to be part of trying to hold a president accountable for inciting that violence. And really what I think of as an attempted coup. I know we've called it an insurrection, and it certainly was. But if those folks had been successful, they would have prevented the Congress from certifying the results of the 2020 presidential election. And I do think that was their goal for many of them, if not most of them. And so I was proud to serve in that role, even though we weren't able to get Donald Trump convicted. But that's what's at stake. So it's incredibly high.
What are the chances of Texas turning blue, or at least of getting it a little more purple?
There's a chance this year. I mean, we've had 3 or 4 polls now recently that have showed Colin Allred within 2 to 3 points of Ted Cruz. And I know out there are a lot of people that roll their eyes now every time they hear, oh, Texas could turn blue this year. But what we've seen is that during this Trump era, that the state has trended toward Democrats. So you have Barack Obama losing to Mitt Romney by 16 points in 2012, and then Hillary Clinton losing by 9.5 points 4 years later. And then in 2020, Joe Biden lost by 5.6 points. And I'm betting that this is going to at least be a closer year than that. Mm-hmm. In the meantime, Democrats picked up 2 congressional seats, 2 state Senate seats, and then 12 state house seats in 2018, and have basically held serve in the state with Republicans since then. So it's moving in that direction. This state is a huge state, so it takes a while, but people should not make any mistake. That's the direction it's heading in, and that's why you have the Attorney General doing these, sham investigations on people trying to mobilize the vote. You have them dropping 1 million people from the voter rolls. They're doing everything, the Republicans are doing everything they can to forestall that day when the state turns over. But they can only keep it at bay for so long. He and I talk about that a lot. And
demography is against it.
Yeah. And also just the politics. I mean, this is a party. When I came into the legislature in 2003, Rick Perry was governor, and Republicans were talking about the Texas miracle and how pro-business they were, and the discussion was over low taxes and low regulation. You don't hear that from the leading Republicans anymore. I mean, Ken Paxton's not talking about that. Dan Patrick, that's not in their campaign slogans. It's very much just these very far extreme right and culture war issues. They're trying to scare people that now that there's sex changes going on at public schools, surgeries being done, that immigrants are eating dogs and cats. They're trying to ban women from not only ban women from having abortions, but criminalize abortion. So a lot of them want to put women in jail for having an abortion. And then they're doing stuff that it's just absolutely, I didn't ever foresee that some of these things would be taken seriously, but banning contraception is part of some Republicans' platforms, this whole Project 2025 that they're doing. And so they're out of step with the average Texan so badly now. They're so badly out of position, And when you play basketball or you're in certain sports, you talk about being in the right position for something, right? And for years, the Republican Party, quite honestly, in Texas was, like I said, they were kind of trying to align themselves in the middle, and they did well. But they've moved so far to the extreme right that even a lot of those Republican Chamber of Commerce types have just acknowledged that this is just a party that's gone too far out there.
Well, and I think you're going to see that in the results this year with Kamala Harris against Donald Trump. I think that the suburbs are going to abandon the Republican Party even more. And that stands to create problems for perhaps some of the Republican suburban congressional representatives, just like two of them, lost in 2018. And I think that the presidential race is going to be closer than most people think here in Texas. Texas has not responded well to Donald Trump. As much as it's a caricatured out there as this far right Republican state, if you notice, it moved away from Trump and the Republicans during his tenure, and I expect that to continue to happen.
Well, and for me, like, God forbid that he wins the presidential election in November, which, as you said, presidential races are always usually pretty close. Even the blowouts are within about 7 points. Ronald Reagan beating Walter Mondale in '84. So if he somehow wins in 24, then I think the state will flip in 26. I think you'll see a slate of Democrats elected in 2026. I think, and I think, however, I do think between that time, there will be massive efforts by Republicans to make it even harder to vote, to dump more people off the rolls, to do all these things that they're trying to do now, but, even accelerate that because they realize that backlash against trying to implement Project 2025 would come in 2026.
Hispanas Unidas, a conference of women, is happening tomorrow, the weekend before your birthday. Your mom is an honorary chair along with Maria Berriozábal. I want to give you an opportunity in our last question to talk about Latinas, their importance in the family, in the country, in the political process, and talk about your mom a little bit. Do one of those great shout-outs.
Yeah, well, I think our mom, she, to us, obviously meant so much. After our parents were together till we were 8, and then our mom raised us as a single mom. Our grandmother lived with us also, so she helped out a lot. But she was raising a family and also incredibly active in politics. Risking her own career. And there are times, where she didn't get jobs because of who she was as somebody who was considered a troublemaker, a rabble-rouser, or an activist, but somebody who fundamentally believed that Latinas, that women and Mexican Americans, and really all people deserve equal rights and equal opportunity. And she fought for that, has fought for it since she was a teenager now in the 1960s. And there's so many other stories of people like that as well. And then I think about my wife, Ana. I'm gone a lot. And so she's with our 3 kids. We have a 10-year-old, an 8-year-old, and a 2-year-old. And then she has her own business as well.
Such cute kids of you have. Oh, my goodness.
Yeah.
Good job.
So Latinas, I think, have contributed in every way to the family, to the advancement of Latinos and Latinas, and to American society.
And they haven't always gotten their due credit.
Oh, no, that's right. Yeah, in fact, that's one of our mom's biggest gripes about the Chicano movement, was that the women did all the work and the guys got all the credit, which is probably true.
Always true. Yeah. And you're now beginning to hear those stories. And women coming forward and taking their due credit and saying, I came up with that idea. I did that. And
but it's wonderful to see Maria Berriozábal be able to get recognized. For us, she was an inspiration. We were like 16 years old when she was running for mayor in 1991. And to see what she stood for and the example that she set, And to see our mom, work on that campaign, it was very inspiring. It's one of the things that inspired me to get into politics, and also inspired me every day when I was mayor of San Antonio. I mean, I hold her up high in her service to the community and how active she's been even after leaving city council in 1991. It's just on so many issues. I remember when we were going through the PGA Village battle in the early 2000s, and Maria, and how visionary she was about the future of the city, and on issues like housing and equity. And she has contributed so much. And so, Maria, my mom, so many other Latinas, our grandmother, who was right there, with my mom, in their own way, we have them to thank for where we are in life. And we feel very, very blessed to have had them in our lives.
Thank you so much for coming in. The stars have to be aligned a certain way to just get you in the same city, and to get you in the same building. And the studio is, it takes an act of Congress, really.
No, it's great to see you and great to be with you. And congratulations on all your years, your career in journalism.
Yikes. Yeah.
And everything you've meant for the community and readers.
Thank you. Thanks for coming in.
Thank you for having us.
Yes, of course. You can watch the video version of Nosotros on YouTube and listen to it anywhere you get your podcasts. My Metro column appears every Wednesday and Friday in the San Antonio Express News. And if you want to reach me, you can do so at my email, eayala@express-news.net. And thanks for listening. See you next time on Nosotros.